now, Illinois Congressman Adam Kinzinger, who sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, nice to have you.
Thanks.
Absolutely. And based on your conversations that you've had over the past few days with your colleagues, is Congress satisfied with the president's meeting with Vladimir Putin?
You know, it's really hard to tell. I thought initially the reports that were coming out of the meeting were actually very positive, with the president really turning everybody on their head by surprising by bringing up election meddling immediately. Many people were speculating he wouldn't even touch it. Coming out with a Syrian ceasefire, pressing on Ukraine. Those are all very good things. In the aftermath of it, there's confusion, as you mentioned in the lead-up, which is, did he accept Vladimir Putin's? My guess is he probably didn't, but decided instead it's time to move on to Syria or Ukraine, and instead of, spending 2.5 hours on just this issue, moving on, and maybe that was perceived as accepting that. I was thrown off a little bit today by the tweet, a lot actually, by the tweet saying that Russia and the United States need to create a cyber unit, which was confusing to me.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's nonsensical. I think the reality, it's literally like, Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner working together to stop interstate harassment. You can't do this because Russia is responsible for breaching cyber walls everywhere, for trying to hack election results and information in the process everywhere. So the idea that we can work with the Russians on some impenetrable cyber defense is not actually realistic at all. And I wish you wouldn't have tweeted that, because I think it takes away from some of the positive news out of the G20.
And in the meeting, Putin denied breaching those cyber walls and saying that he had nothing to do with meddling in our 2016 presidential election. That's according to Secretary of State Tillerson. And then, as you already pointed out, Putin then publicly said in his press conference that the two leaders agreed to put the matter behind them and work on a way to move forward. Meanwhile, back to another part of the tweet that you were referring to from the President Trump this morning, the president tweeting, "I strongly pressed President Putin twice about Russia meddling in our election." He vehemently denied it. The president ended that tweet with saying, "I've already given my opinion." So one, Congressman, do you know what the president's opinion is, and are you satisfied with it? And do you trust Putin's assertion that President Trump accepted, his denial?
I absolutely don't trust President Putin. This is a guy that says he doesn't bomb civilian hospitals in Syria. This is someone who says that it was actually the rebels that used chemical weapons. There's nothing trustworthy about Vladimir Putin. So I actually believe our administration over Vladimir Putin on this. And again, I wasn't in the meeting. Obviously, there were only a few people that were in there. But my perception is what probably happened is President Trump pressed hard on this. And you're not going to get Vladimir Putin to say, you got me, you're right, we were doing this, because that's a really big deal. And but it was probably a point at which, President Trump made the point twice, and he said, okay, let's move on. Let's find areas where we can work together. If that's what happened, that's totally acceptable in a meeting, because, the president can't spend 2.5 hours beating a dead horse, basically, when he knows President Putin's not going to admit it. But I think making a strong statement that we're aware of this, that we're not going to tolerate this anymore here or our allies, is the most important thing that can come out of that.
And are you sure that Russia won't meddle in future elections in 2018, 2020, and beyond? And if there is a concern, what do you think it's going to take to make sure Russia knocks it off?
Oh, I think they absolutely will try to. And as Republicans, we have to realize this is an American issue, not a Republican issue. They, in 2018, probably will turn against us. And so the reality is we have to defend ourselves. We have to play offensive against Russia. There's nothing that Vladimir Putin fears more than losing his own election. So I think don't fight fire with fire in this circumstance. And we have to make people aware of the fact that it's happening. When there's legitimate fake news, made-up stories that are put out by the RT or by Sputnik News, we have to be aware of that, and it inoculates against the influence it can have on people. So we need to be aware that this is absolutely in his playbook. It's absolutely going to happen again, and we have to defend against this in every way possible.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you very much.
You bet. Thanks.
Well, meanwhile,